Continue.
Good morning. I'm hoping that you can all hear us. We're going to make a start because it's 10 o'clock, if that's okay with everybody. So I'm going to ask Becca to put the first slide up, if that's okay. So we're really pleased to say that today is the second open quarterly NQICAN meeting. I'm Vicky Patel, I'm the chair of NQICAN, the National Quality Improvement Including Clinical Audit Network. You'll find that your microphones are muted, but please do, if you're able to, put your cameras on. We're going to record the event and make it available to view via the NQICAN YouTube channel, and this means that you can listen to the event again, or certain aspects that you may want to revisit, or even share it more widely with your team if they've not been able to join us today. And we will make sure that we provide you with links to the forum and our website as well if we mention these throughout today's session. So Becca, could you press record if you've not done so already, please, and we'll move on to the next slide. So today's agenda, it was published for you all. You'll have seen it when you've gone on and registered via Eventbrite. So the full event means that we're with you for the next 2 hours. We've got the next 2 hours together. You'll notice, like I've already said, your mic's muted. The chat function's not enabled during this event, and this allows us to closely manage the time that we've got with you today. Just ensures that everyone who wants to contribute can do via the Q&A platform, and it allows that focus to be on the speakers and their content, because it's all about disseminating that information to you all. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you though, and you'll notice instructions here that direct you to the Q&A at the top of your toolbar and on your Teams function. We did listen to you all post the September meeting, and we've set this function up using the options within the same platform for ease of use. It's the first time we've used it for an NQICAN meeting, so do bear with us as we progress through the meeting today. Becca's busy behind the scenes helping us with the slides and the presenters, and Marina's going to look after the Q&As for us as well. This allows you to ask questions throughout the event, so you don't have to wait to think about ready to ask them. You can actually post them as soon as you're thinking on the Q&A toolbar. We have scheduled a Q&A session at the end, and Marina will lead that session for us. Put your email address in when you ask a question. If we don't manage to get to all the questions today, we'll get responses out to you. At the end, when we're doing the Q&A panel, Marina will put questions to the most appropriate speaker for you. We did also listen to your feedback from the last meeting, and we have allowed time on the agenda for questions to be put to each speaker at the end of their section as well. But again, if we don't have enough time to cover them at the end of each section, Marina can also put them to that key speaker when we go to the Q&A panel at 11:45. The question and answer document has now been published post the September meeting. It's available on the forum and the NQICAN website, and there's a link to HQIT's responses to their questions on their website as well. It's out and it's published. It was the first time that we did the Q&A document from the first open meeting in September. It took us a while to process it this time. We're hoping that we'll be able to manage that in a more timely manner post the meeting today. So next slide then, please, Becca. So just wanted to, before we launch into the speaker presentations, just wanted to reach out to you all again today, just to check in, get a sense of how you're all feeling today. It is really important that we do check in with one another, and I just wanted to highlight this NHS Employers How Are You Feeling toolkit, in case you've not seen it yet. It might be of use to you, yourself, or for someone in your team. It is an interactive, easy to use resource. NHS Employers have developed it with NHS staff, and it's about bridging that gap in understanding and enabling us to talk openly and regularly about our emotional health. It's about assessing that impact of our emotional well-being on ourselves, our colleagues, and then our patients as well. And it does enable you to put an action plan in place so that we're all having more good days, more better days than bad days. So it's about accessing the toolkit and starting to use it really to have those emotional well-being discussions in the workplace. December this month as well, we're heading towards that festive break, and we're recognising that obviously some staff will be working over this period to keep all of our services running for those who need to access it. And it's this time of year really that we do give that wider thanks and hope that everyone does get some time to break and spend with loved ones and family, and then checking in as well on those that might need need it. And then I think I said this last time, really, it's about, even post meeting today, just taking time to stop, pause and breathe, and then we're ready to go again. So I'm actually going to hand over to Marina, our new NQICAN General Secretary, who's got a couple of slides to introduce herself to you all and tell you what she's been doing the first month when she's been in role. So next slide, please, Becca, and we'll hand over to Marina.
Thanks, Vicky. Yeah, just to introduce myself, really, for those who don't know me. So my name's Marina Otley. I'm the new General Secretary, Deputy Chair for NQICAN. So just a little bit in terms of my background. I've worked for the NHS since 2001. Fresh-faced when Nokia phones looked like this. I've worked in clinical audit since 2003, so definitely a clinical audit lifer. My current role is working as clinical effectiveness lead at Nottingham City Care, which is a community services provider. I was the East Midlands Network Chair between 2015 and 2020, and then I was elected General Secretary at the 29th of September NQICAN business meeting. So I officially started, following a period of handover, officially started on the 1st of November. Next slide, please, Becca. Okay, so my first month in role, obviously with the September being sort of later on in the month, and then the December meeting being quite early in the month, I've effectively just done just over 1 month in my role. So far I've updated the declarations of interest. I've requested the regional network plans. I've drafted the 2023-24 reimbursements plan. Met with HQIP, met with networks for Greater Manchester, East of England, South of East, and then the South East and South Central new network. We've had an interim meeting with regional chairs to discuss the task and finish groups, and we've been working on the review of the governance arrangements and of course preparing for this meeting. Apologies, Vicky, I've just seen a message coming up to say that the live event hasn't started yet. Somebody's posted a message in the Q&A to say that they're saying that the live event hasn't started yet.
Oh,
I was also just about to ask how many people are attended. It looks like maybe it's just us. Is it?
I was thinking the same.
I can see 94. It says 94 attendees on mine, because presumably I'm the producer, so I get that.
So we can't.
I'm watching it on the other device. It's working all right on that. I can see.
Yeah, I was going to say I can see one of my colleagues is on it, and that they can see the slides. So I'm hoping that that's an isolated person. Sorry, that person.
You. Shall we keep going then? And I wonder if we could ask them to leave and rejoin. Would that work?
Oh, someone else has said
someone else has responded to say it's working fine for them. So
fantastic. So shall we keep going?
And then just yeah.
Lovely, fantastic. So next slide then, please. Have you finished? Sorry, Marina.
Yes, I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think it's just reflecting on what you've just said, Marina. It's been a busy month, hasn't it? Busy month. So yeah, it's you've hit the ground running, I think. So yeah, that's fantastic. So okay, so on to the first agenda item then today, and obviously it's the NQICAN chairs update. So if we can just move to the next slide, please, Becca. So very briefly then, in the next 10 minutes, just bearing on the fact that we're at 10:10 already. So just to provide you with a quick update on the 22-23 improvement priorities, which will lead us into talking about some task and finish group opportunities that we're going to share with you all. And then obviously mindful that also then links into us talking about the new purpose for co-opted members. And then finally touching on the NQICAN comms plan that we talked about in September 22. We've included our pledges slide for you again that the core and non-core NQICAN members shared with you previously in terms of what we want to achieve for the remainder of this year. And it's all about further strengthening clinical audit really for improvement for our patients and service users every day, and making sure that we're representing the clinical audit community on our networks groups and making sure that your voice is heard. So next slide, please, Becca. I'll move swiftly on. So I thought it was probably important at this point, it's the second open meeting today, to just share with you quite quickly how we see the different meetings working, so in terms of the open meeting and then the regional network meetings, so that attendees can clearly see the purpose of both, but also the importance of attending both in terms of getting the most out of your experience to take back to your own organisation, and then also bringing things from your own organisation into that regional network meeting. So the open meetings are where we're really cascading updates on key information that you need to know and take back to your own organisation. So updates from NHS England, HQIP, NICE, any other key topics we feel relevant for you to know about in more detail that will inform your day job. In addition to taking this back to your own organisation, we then see you meeting as a regional network to really reflect, discuss and share and learn together on key aspects of this information that we've cascaded and how it applies on a local level, alongside your challenges, your solutions, and how we manage to deliver on clinical effectiveness and wider QI activities to really make that difference to our patients and service users, and also to our staff and our teams. So the open meetings about that cascade of information and updates, and your regional meetings are your opportunity to really be networking, sharing and learning together, and more importantly across that healthcare system. Next slide please, Becca. So the focus over the last 3 months then, since we last met with you all then, has been very much for NQICAN, slightly less time on the behalf of NQICAN. It's felt the right balance, as we've got 3 networks currently without regional chairs. So Marina and I have been supporting those members too, and Marina touched on that when she just talked to you to her slides. It's been busy, as you can see. But just to cover some points in a little bit more detail, time has been spent on the feedback from the first open meeting in September and making some further changes for today, in addition to our regular steering group and HQIP meetings that we've had. And we held that additional meeting with our core and non-core members of NQICAN, as Marina touched on, which was around discussing task and finish groups going forwards. We're reviewing the forward plan, the improvement priorities and those current task and finish groups, and I'll touch on that shortly on another slide. On behalf of NQICAN, we've attended the NHS England's Executive Quality Group, Clinical Audit Subgroup and the National Clinical Audit Implementation Group again. NQICAN are invited to provide that local audit voice to discussions, and I know that Rebecca Campbell will talk a little bit more about both of those groups when she gives you the NHS England update later. So all of our activity undertaken by our core members and our non-core members, all of this is helping to drive our forward plan. Next slide, please, Becca. So we spoke to you at the last meeting about refocusing your regional network meetings to align to this new model. So your current regional network chairs are busy looking at your 2023 meeting dates and work plans. So they're currently setting those dates and currently setting your work plans really so that they're aligning with the central meeting. And this is, like I've already said on the previous slide, so that focus on your regional networks can be about networking, sharing and learning together on how this information impacts, applies or can be taken forward locally and in particular across your integrated care systems. So your chairs are currently busy reviewing your membership. They will be revisiting your terms of reference, and Marina and I are obviously working with the regional networks that don't have chairs in place at the moment, and we will be supporting them to go out to an expression of interest process to try to get those chairs and steering groups in place. Next slide, please. So we're at that time of year again where we do review our current progress with our 22-23 improvement priorities. As Marina's mentioned, she's been busy putting in that reimbursement plan to HQIP, ready for looking at what our 23-24 programme will look like. So we've made some progress, but we've not gone as far as we would have liked to in terms of managing to get enough volunteers to help us in terms of task and finish groups to take some of these forward. So I'm just going to move to the next slide then, please, Becca, so I can talk to you in a little bit more detail about this. So we did agree that we can't really delay any longer in finding leads for some task and finish groups, as we need to progress the forward plan and our improvement priorities. So we want to go out to the wider clinical audit community now for volunteers to express an interest in leading one of these groups. And you will have specified objectives to deliver on in terms of what we're expecting each of these improvement priorities to achieve. Now, if you put yourself forward for this experience may put you in a position where you might want to put yourself forward in the future to be to take on a regional or a national role. We recognise that obviously there's a whole wealth of experience that we've got within our wider clinical audit community across the whole country. So we want to be able to offer this opportunity for people to get involved in making this better. It's also worth noting at this point that our fantastic regional chairs, they'd also like to see some increased support from their members in running the networks as well and getting more involved. So if you feel this is you, do get in touch with your chair and offer your support, because together we're going to be far more stronger and we can achieve far more as well. It's so important to take the time to get together a network, and we do appreciate that we are all busy, but it's usually only afterwards that we realise actually making that time is really beneficial. Okay, next slide, please. Please, Becca. So in the next few weeks, then we're going to put out the expressions of interests, and we'll circulate those out via your networks and via the forum. And this is about asking for leads then for each of these task and finish groups. If you were successful then with your EOI and becoming one of these leads, you would then automatically become a co-opted member of NQICAN for your term of 12 months. You will have your agreed objectives for your topic, and we would expect you to really be putting across in your EOI which of these task and finish groups you're expressing an interest in leading, and then detailing really what skills you've got aligned to that topic, because we would expect you to have the right skills to be able to then take that improvement priority forward. In an ideal world, we'd like to get representation from all types of health and care organisations. We'd hope to see that in your EOI as well, because obviously you're bringing that voice from that type of health and care organisation that you work in as well. But it's not going to deter us from taking these task and finish groups forward. I've just listed on the right here just a list of some areas that we've got in health and care, but obviously if you drill down behind each of those, there's far more. It's absolutely massive, the different types of health and care organisations that we've got. We've previously mentioned about trying to get that geographical representation across the country from co-opted members, but again, although we'd like to get that spread, we're not going to let that deter us from actually making sure that we've got leads in place for these task and finish groups to make sure we're delivering on our improvement priorities. So watch this space. If you think this is something that you're going to be interested in expressing an interest for, watch out for those E&Is coming out over the next few weeks. We touched in September about developing the comms plan for NQICAN, just so it was so much more clearer for our members, so that they can see how we as core and non-core members of NQICAN communicate, but also how you can within your regional networks and reaching out from your organisations. So to further complement then where I started with the slide on the purpose of the open meeting and then the regional meetings, this is just touching on those comms routes now. So from the NQICAN perspective, we very much on behalf of you all communicate with NHS England, the Integrated Care Boards, HQIP, our national audit providers, NICE, academic health science networks. This is all on behalf of the audit community, but then we also communicate out to the wider clinical audit community as well. And we do this through our core and non-core members, our regional network members. We've got the forum. We circulate emails and newsletters. We obviously try to minimise the emails going out because we've developed the forum for us to be having all of our communications with each other, just to try to reduce that email traffic. We do hold online events as well for you all. We've got the website and publications such as the biannual report, which will actually be due again for publication this September and October 23. And then of course we also have Twitter, but purely for that purpose of pushing the information and resources your way. Next slide please, Becca. So then from yourself as a network member, a representative of your own organisation, you can communicate with your regional chair, you've got your other network members, you can reach out to people on the forum. If you haven't done so already, please do join that forum and your network. You receive newsletters that get circulated. There's the HQIP website and directory. If you've not signed up for the HQIP newsletter yet, please do. That's a fabulous resource. Again, the NHSE Transformation Directorate, they've got a newsletter as well that you can get signed up for, and even your ICBs, your ICSs, they're now starting to circulate newsletters as well. It's just trying to make sure that you're communicating with all the right bodies and organisations, so you're almost getting that information into your hands so that you can take it forward in your own organisation. Next slide, please, Becca. So then almost there, it's just letting you know about some events that are coming up. So in January, we're planning to hold the 3rd Infographic Users Network, date yet to be confirmed and the flyer to come out, but it's a really nice network, and you can learn how to use infographics and see examples of what people have already produced within their day job back in their organisation. We're hoping to put on a second event with the Making Data Count team at NHS England. So hopefully that will be planned for February. It won't be long. We'll be releasing the date for that as well. And then we'll be holding the quarterly open meeting again in March. Okay, next slide, please, Becca. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. Pledges, these are just for your information again. They've not changed. These are our pledges for you for the next 6 months in terms of what Marina and I will be doing as NQICAN officers, our regional chairs, and then obviously our co-opted members as well. I'll move on to the next slide, please, Becca. Future dates, we've set them all for 2023. You'll be getting your 2023 dates out for your regional network meetings as well. Get these in your calendar, protect the time now so that you can join us and hear the cascade of information directly from our speakers that we're inviting. Okay, and then it's the opportunity now for a few questions before we move on to the Academic Health Science Network on our agenda then, please. So Marina, I don't know if you've had any questions posted yet that are relevant to come to yourself or I at this point.
We've had a question in, Vicky, saying they like the new approach for co-opted members. Is there a deadline for expressions of interest, please?
There will be. So I obviously need to speak to Becca and Marina about getting these out, and obviously we're aware that it's going to be a Christmas period, so the deadline I think will move into potentially the first week of January, but we will confirm that, so it allows people time to get it in and have a think about it, and to also talk to your own organisation about support from your line manager to be able to commit to it. So yeah, but we'll make sure we put all of that detail on the EOI as it comes out. We don't want to leave it too late in January because we're conscious we want to get the task and finish groups established and start to getting some of that activity going.
Yeah, that's it for now.
Lovely, fantastic. So I'm aware we've gone a couple of minutes over, so shall we move to our next agenda item then for and we'll hand over to Stuart to start. I'll let you introduce yourself, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
We can, yes.
Great. Good morning. First of all, delighted to be here talking on behalf of the AHSN network with colleagues about some of our work. We get very excited when we find networks that have priorities that align with our own, and hopefully this can be the start of some more partnership working across the country between AHSN colleagues and yourselves. So I'm Stuart Monk. I work in the AHSN Network Central Team, coordinating the delivery of 2 of our what we call national programmes, one of which is the MedTech Funding Mandate Policy. And it's that we're going to go into a bit more detail on over the next half an hour. I've got colleagues from different parts of the country, Sarah and Joe from the South Coast, Wessex and Dorset area, and then obviously Vicky, who you all know, will talk with Adam from Yorkshire and Humber AHSN, to bring to life, I suppose, some examples of NQICAN local working with AHSN network to support the MedTech Funding Mandate Policy. If you can move to the next slide, please, Becca. So just to outline what we're going to talk about, I will talk very briefly at the start about our role as an AHSN network and what we do to support the MedTech Funding Mandate. Then hand over to Vicky and Adam to talk through some of the work that they do in the Yorkshire and Humber region collaboratively. Joe and Sarah will do the same for Wessex AHSN and the Dorset Innovation Hub. And then at the end, it'll come back to me. I'll give you a quick overview of a series of workshops that we would like to run with you all and AHSN colleagues next year to try and, I suppose, bring together our areas of work, think about how we might collaborate a bit more closely and hopefully provide a bit of a learning and educational opportunity as well. Next slide, please. So the AHSN, or Academic Health Science Network, as we are known, which to be honest with you is a mouthful and it doesn't really describe particularly well what we actually do. Our ambition is to improve lives through health innovation. We have this triple aim of improving the health of patients, driving economic growth and saving money in health and care. I don't have time to go into too much detail, but very happy to take questions offline in more detail about who we are and what we do. We've been around for 10 years. We're funded by NHS England predominantly. We do a lot of work in the early stages of the innovation pipeline to find and nurture innovations from all areas from within the NHS, from the commercial sector, from the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. We do a lot of work with innovators themselves through our innovation pipeline, and then at the end of that we support the spread and adoption of innovation. So we work with our NHS organisations predominantly and our ICSs to support the spread of proven innovation that we know works, with that triple aim in mind. Next slide, please. So one of the spread and adoption mechanisms or programmes that we have is actually an NHS England policy that I'm hoping many of you are becoming increasingly aware of through your local system working. That's the MedTech funding mandate. So this is part of NHS England's Accelerated Access Collaborative. It's also part of the long-term plan. Its aim as a policy is to accelerate equitable patient access in England to medical technologies that improve the quality and experience of care. And those innovations that land on the policy have to meet 3 criteria. They have to be clinically effective, and we use NICE guidance to help us prove that. It has to have a diagnostic guidance, a DG, or a medical technologies guidance, an MTG. The innovations that we work with on the policy have to be cost saving in 3 years as determined by the NICE resource impact modelling that forms part of their guidance, and they have to be affordable to the NHS, and the way that we define that is that the costs must not exceed £20 million nationally in year. So the Academic Health Science Network supports the Accelerated Access Collaborative team to deliver the adoption and spread of the technologies that are on the policy across England. Policy launched 18 months ago with an initial 4 technologies, and then this year a further 7 were added to the list of devices that form part of the policy. Next slide, please. So what do we actually do then as a network to support the policy? Again, this is very high level, and encourage you all to link up with your HSN colleagues, which we'll see on the next slide. But broadly speaking, we categorise what we do into these 5 areas. Understanding context, so we work with our systems to quantify and qualify current levels of uptake and do a lot of work to understand who are the key people that we need to be engaging with around individual technologies. Awareness raising is a constant comms activity that we do both at policy level, so making sure that people in the system understand the policy itself and what their obligations are around it, and then also the technologies themselves, so that people understand the technologies, how they work, which clinical pathways they sit on, and how to best implement. We then do some work to support implementation, so we can work with systems to develop business cases, bringing learning from other areas that have adopted, share resources, case studies, that type of thing. And then the final 2 are very heavily linked. So we do a lot of work to understand the barriers that exist locally to individual technology implementation and to the policy as a whole. We feed that back into the policy team in NHS England so that they can think about that in the context of the policy and how it might evolve over time. And that sharing knowledge piece is obviously crucial at all levels. So feeding back that knowledge on barriers, what's working, to the policy team, to NICE as well. We're doing more and more with them to try and use this policy delivery mechanism to support and inform their guidance development. That's becoming quite a key part of what we do, so that the policy can evolve and hopefully improve over time. Final slide from me is on the next one, please, Becca. So we'll share these afterwards, but this just gives you a snapshot of who in your region you might want to talk to if you're not already plugged into your AHSN locally. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail, but you'll see the names after, and I'd encourage all of you to reach out to your local AHSN person, as there's some great collaborative opportunities to work on this policy and maybe on some other things that the AHSN network is doing in your region as well. I'm now going to hand over to Vicky and to Adam to talk about the Yorkshire and Humber approach. Adam, over to you.
Thanks, Stuart. Morning, everybody. So my name's Adam Smith. I'm a project manager in the Yorkshire and Humber AHSN, and I'm just going to use a few minutes to talk about our approach over in Yorkshire, how we came about to work with Jörn and get linked up with Vicky, and why we're here today. Basically. So if you go on to the next slide, please, Becca. So just to think back to Stuart's one of the previous slides around understanding the context. I'm quite new to the NHS. I joined from the Home Office back in January, so I joined at a time around medtech delivery where we were really looking to understand the context and scope out our stakeholders, and I kind of brought that thinking of, well, what else is going on? Again, new to the NHS, so I didn't have that understanding other than kind of what you see in the news and things like that. So I started looking at the strategies, and this is a select few. This is non-exhaustive, but a lot of the med techs bring massive gains around elective care. So I started looking at what we're driving it, what's going to be important to our stakeholders around that, and you can see that the medtech funding mandate sits alongside these. You know, it's it has a place and it aligns to a lot of this. So we spent quite a lot of time looking at this side of it, and really understanding the environment in which we're trying to deliver these medtechs. I think there's an assumption that it's almost like a tick box exercise, that it's nice and approved for all the reasons that Stuart went through, so we should just be adopting it. But we understand it's a minefield that we're trying to navigate through, and the collaboration that we have between that we can promote with each other and working together can really help us deliver sizable changes with all this. If you go on to the next slide, please, Becca. So talking of stakeholders, so we got that understanding of the environment in which we're working in and what we're wanting to deliver. Next, these are the stakeholders as defined by the policy. They'll be familiar to you. There's a few of what their role is, a bit of information what their role is, and what our challenges are in working with the stakeholders. But I just want to turn your attention to NHS providers. So in the policy, the NHS provider side is split into the clinical teams and the corporate teams, and this kind of explains how we came about to tapping into Yearn in Yorkshire. The corporate teams is absolutely huge. All those listed in the box there. You've got finance, you've got clinical effectiveness, obviously sales, procurement, and really all these stakeholders have a key part in delivering this, being involved in the delivery of the medtech funding mandate to get it to as impactful as it can be. Without some of these involved in that process, it becomes really difficult and nigh impossible. So with that in mind, it was actually so I was completely unaware of Yearn, and I think it's safe to say that other HSNs are not necessarily aware of their regional networks. And it were actually a York NICE coordinator who got in touch and just said, I've just been on this board meeting I've never heard of, and what's this about the medtech funding mandate? I've been kind of pushed towards yourself to kind of understand what my role is in delivering it. And it kind of came from there. So obviously from there I learned about Yearn, got in contact with Vicky, and then we really developed this working relationship, this collaboration around how we can look to a very structured way of looking at how we bring the medtechs in, and we get them as impactful as they can be. All the right stakeholders are engaged, and it just works really well. So that's what we want to kind of share with you today, and I'll hand over to Vicky in a second, who's going to go through the Sheffield process to explain that a bit more. I did see a question pop up about HVLC. That's a high volume, low complexity programme, which is a GIRF-led programme, and some of the medtechs do align to the gains that could be had through increasing the volume of treatments in elective care. Okay, is there any other questions at this point for me that have popped up?
Just a couple. So one of them was, do NQICAN regional networks mirror the AHSNs?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Vicky, do you know?
I was going to get you to get back to your map that you had on there. Oh no, it was Stuart's slide, wasn't it? What we'll do is we'll have a quick look. I know we've urged the regional network chairs to potentially think about inviting the AHSNs to join the meetings. I know that the 3 networks we met with last week, we were suggesting as well, weren't we, Marina, too? So we can certainly have a look at it. We'll go back to Stuart's map, and Marina's just literally produced us a new regional network map as well. So we'll have a look and align just to make sure. But it's pretty similar, isn't it? But we'll just double check for you. We'll make sure that we'll publish that map on the forum, and these slides will go on as well.
Yes, that was the other point that was raised, is about, will we be sharing the slides?
Yeah, they'll go onto the forum, and then also we'll have them on the NQICAN website as well.
I'll hand over to you then, Vicky. Is that okay?
Lovely, thank you. So, thank you, Adam. And as you've just said, it was really about just sharing the process that we've developed in Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, really, in terms of working really closely with Adam and Harriet at our local AHSN, as well as obviously bringing it onto the year-end agenda to make sure that everybody knows about the medtechs and that they're already starting to then look at how we can move forward to adopt them. So I was involved very much with Adam because I oversee the NICE implementation at Sheffield as well, and the 11 medtechs for 21, 22 and 2023, we've obviously looked at all of them, all applicable for our acute trust. So for us at Sheffield, quite early on, our head of innovation within our trust actually made contact with our clinical effectiveness team, to make sure we were aware of them, which we were obviously on the NICE agenda, and then look to see what all of our responsibility was within it and how we could actually make it work. So we held a series of meetings involving our head of innovation, our head of research, strategy and planning as well, which was really, really important from the money side of things, and our medical lead as well, our deputy medical director, so that we made sure we actually sat down and mapped out a really robust process for us to make sure that we're reviewing, considering and adopting. So we wanted to make sure that process aligned with how we already implement NICE guidance within our organisation as well. But we also wanted to make sure it went through one of our groups, so it was formally minuted, so that we've got our evidence really for our board and also our commissioners that we were reviewing and considering adoption of these mandated technologies. That group for us is chaired by our deputy medical director, and it's on this slide you'll see it referred to as a NICIG, NISG, and it's simply a NICE implementation steering group. This NICIG does actually report into our clinical effectiveness committee, so we have that cascade up to provide that assurance. And it was agreed quite early on that the medtechs would be reported alongside all our other NICE guidance within our trust. So once NHS England published their mandated list of medtechs, we've got a NICE coordinator in our organisation, and they review all of these to find out which ones are applicable to us in the first instance. If anything's not clear, everything goes to our NICIG, our operational group, for a supportive discussion. So our NICE coordinator would identify the clinical area that it's applicable to. They'd make contact with the triumvirate in the first instance for a named lead to start that conversation with. The triumvirate here being your clinical director, your nurse director, your ops director. And we want to know at this point if we're already using this technology or not. And if we are using it, are we using it in line with guidance? So we've got 4 routes here to take that you can see. The first being the grey bubble, where NICIG would agree any that we feel are not applicable, so that it's not just sitting with our NICE coordinator, it's going to a formal group in the organisation to agree that they say, yeah, this isn't applicable for us. Then if you look at the green bubble, that's where we are finding out that actually we're already using it, it's already embedded as per NICE guidance, lovely and green, and we're happy. There's the yellow bubble where it might be in use, but maybe not in line with guidance. And then finally, the red bubble where it's not being considered yet for use in our trust. So if you just move to the next slide for me, please, Becca. If it's green, the NICE coordinator now needs to make sure that we're collating all that evidence to support that safe implementation as per trust post processes and per NICE guidance. For example, when we introduced it, did we introduce it via our new treatments and techniques route that we've got in our organisation? And now are we at a point to moving on to identifying patient numbers? Have we got the right patient information available? And then have we undertaken a clinical audit? And if not at this point in time, we'd work with the team to make sure that we have completed all of those steps and that we move that topic of audit onto our clinical audit programme, so that we're now closing the loop of that adoption and the adoption, innovation, and making sure that it's all working. In terms of yellow, then, we would work with that identified lead to understand how they've introduced it, how it's being used, understanding the efficacy and safety in the way that they're using, and then looking to see if there's any aspect of it that we might deviate from if we're not using it in line with guidance, and that deviation would go through our usual risk assessment route up to board within our organisation. And we might find at this stage that we move to make changes so that we are using it in line with guidance, and then we've moved to understand those numbers, the patient information, and then measuring using clinical audit. If we were to deviate, as I'd said, we'd follow that trust agree processes for deviation, which is risk assessed as already stated, and then it would be approved or not approved by our board. So then that brings the focus now quickly onto the red bubble, where we've not used this technology before. We start that conversation. Could we introduce this for our patients? And this is where we need that input from all of the roles supporting the adoption of that mandated medtech. So that was Adam's slide when he was talking about all the different groups in those bubbles, because each role takes a different responsibility within this. That clinical lead has got that clinical expertise. They know the patient groups. They usually understand peers in other organisations and who's already offering this technology. They might already be referring patients to other centres, and if so, is this equitable for all? If actually the patients have got to travel, if distance is involved, should we be offering this technology here? Thinking back to Adam's slide where the focus was looking at that initial investment that you might have to make to adopt it, but longer term the organisation may save in terms of reducing those waiting lists. They may benefit from reduced costs, even though we may not see this initially. More timely diagnostics and improved patient outcomes as a direct result of earlier access to a diagnosis and therefore treatment. It feels more equitable in terms of less travel to other centres. Thinking about your ops directors, your business managers in terms of any service redesign or that funding element that you need your OD involved for. In addition, if you can identify a role that's within your strategy and planning department, your contracting department, commissioning department, that will work with your clinical teams and your ops directors, your service managers, to ensure that they do complete that right paperwork for the financials. Because these mandated medtechs, although we're saying, oh, well, they're all commissioned, they're not coming with that additional money. They're part of block payments, and your organisation needs to ensure that actually you've got the right roles involved to make sure that you get the money for any technologies that are introduced, and your clinicians won't necessarily know where to start with in terms of that. And you don't want to adopt something where you're not going to get paid for it. So make sure you've got the right roles in your organisation involved within your process that you're going to define. Your CDs and your NDs, your clinical leadership, they've got that expertise. They need to be involved to approve any introduction of any new technology. So some of these conversations that you might have with your clinical team to consider adopting them, sometimes they can be challenging. And if you're working within your clinical effectiveness team, you're managing the NICE guidance and you're looking at this suite of medtechs, you need to know about them to be able to have those informative discussions with your clinical teams. Often they don't like the word mandated, so it's about putting it across in the right words so that they will consider some adoption. It's worth finding out through your academic and health science network lead how other organisations in your region are also taking it forward as well, because that will help your discussions with your clinicians. Explore those conversations and identify those benefits. Don't be too hasty to make decisions. We've had discussions in Sheffield that have gone over quite a few months that have ended up with a positive decision to adopt at the end of it. So it's just making sure that you introduce it within your governance infrastructures within your organisation as well, and don't forget to touch on those capabilities in terms of access to training as well, in terms of use of technologies. So very quickly then, before I hand over, we work really closely with Adam and Harriet. We have monthly meetings, I think, don't we, Adam, in terms of just discussing our suite of medtechs even if it's just a touch base for us to get a bit more assurance, perhaps from Adam and Harriet, around taking further evidence information back to those discussions with our clinical teams. The Academic Health Science Network do report up to NHS England in terms of what organisations are adopting, hence why we've taken quite a rigorous process that we've put in place in terms of our organisation, so that we have got board assurance behind any decisions we're making, should we be challenged by our commissioners at any point in the future. So I'm hoping that's been helpful, that we've showed the model that we've put in place, and ultimately what we're doing for our audit programmes for 23-24 is now making sure that we're putting the ones that we've adopted onto our audit programme, to making sure that we're now closing the loop of that adoption. And I'm going to hand over now to Sarah and Joe.
Thank you so much, Vicky, and lovely to hear about the processes that there are and the work with Yorkshire and Humber. If we have next slide, thank you, Becca. So for the purposes of time, this is a very short and brief outline about the ways that we are working collaboratively with the Wessex AHSN, and I'm joined here with my esteemed colleague Jo Sladen, Associate Director at the Wessex AHSN. But I will speak through the slides as we go. They're written in such a way you can use them as a resource, so they'll be available on the forum as Vicky has said. So next slide, please. Thank you. So the Dorset Innovation Hub, and really it's about collaborative working, partnership working. We are one of 4 UK innovation hubs funded by the Health Foundation, and we're embedded into our local integrated care system as one of the delivery vehicles for our ICS priorities, as you can see here. I'm not going to talk about all the words on these slides. As I say, this is a short presentation, but I hope to be able to speak to you more in the future about this. The key perspective, and what's been lovely to see from Sheffield and Yorkshire and Humber, is actually that integral link with clinical audit, the embedding into the normal quality process. And where with the Dorset Innovation Hub, we work to support priorities within Dorset. And just go back 2 slides, please, Becca. And again, thank you. We're just working in the golden quality thread, and in the columns that we look at, knowing we have discovery, so clinical research, what's new, getting the evidence in, real world testing through develop, and moving forward to quality improvement, service improvement, and to deploy, so looking at evidence-based innovation and looking at evaluation. So how do we know that actually we're improving patient outcomes? What tools do we use, be that QI, be it service improvement, or as you will know, for those of you that know me, it's using clinical audit in its most effective way to make sure we are supporting the people that use our services. Next slide, please. Thanks, Becca. So we work as a true partnership. So you can see on the slide here, we work with our local enterprise partnerships, so small, medium-sized enterprises, our acute trusts, NHS Dorset. We work with the voluntary and community sector assembly and all their thousands of members. We work with community, and we work with our councils and academia, as well as the Wessex AHSN and the NIHR Research Collaborative, so the ARC. And it's really important. If we can go to the next slide, please. Our programme group on the top left is made up of voting representatives from each of these partners. They have a very clear voice to say how they would like the programme to move forward and really frame the priorities that we work with. So really are a very strong voice. When we look at the priorities with the councils and providing social care versus the acutes and versus academia, they're coming from very different perspectives. So there's that very clear voice. And when we look at the Dorset Innovation Hub, and as I've said, we are focusing on the implementation and sustainable implementation of innovation into practice. You've guessed it, we're talking about the medtech funding mandate. So we're talking about those nice approved innovations and about getting them really embedded into practice. And there is obviously a but I'll come to that in just a minute. On the right hand side, you can see some members of our core team that's made up from each of the partners. We work together collaboratively. We don't work with a traditional line management perspective. We work with in-kind funding and work in a way to take forward projects. And that's about facilitating. So we work with the clinical and operational teams who are trying to embed the innovation, providing advice and support. So we don't do to, we work with, and we do that as a team with the Wessex AHSN and the other organisations. The key thing is that we always have one member of the team that is part of that organisation. They know their structures, they know the pathways, they know the demographics within their area. On the left, you can see a balanced programme, as we call it. So we've got the top down, bottom up. The must-dos are the medtech funding mandates. So NHS England, and as Stuart said, with the Accelerated Access Collaborative. And an example of that is the placental growth factor. So that's the test. NICE guidance has just been updated to have a rule in and a rule out test for pre-eclampsia. And that's looking to improve the outcomes both for mum and baby as well. And then I won't go into it, but you can see that we also have local priorities and the programme there. And one of the priority projects that we're doing at the moment is malnutrition in ageing people, and the wide ranging from actually reacting to malnutrition, but also looking at proactively looking at nutrition. And please forgive the American spelling of ageing there. And next slide, please. Again, just another way of visualising our priorities and how those link in. And as Vicky has outlined, we encourage folk to make sure that these must-do medtechs are actually implemented as part of a planned clinical audit programme. These are about making sure these are priorities as we move forward. Next slide, thank you. Thanks, Becca. So just focusing on a couple of impacts and learning and opportunities. We've developed processes within the Dorset Innovation Hub, so we're working in a sustainable way to make sure that we connect with the health and care innovation priorities for our system, for Dorset. So we're a complex system, we're a very affluent area, but we're also a highly deprived area, and it's seeing that balance between the two. One of the things we've worked a lot on is about definitions of innovation, and really important when we look at people understanding what are we trying to do with innovation. Is it service improvement? Is it the QIs? Is it clinical audit? And on the bottom right there, you can see a page from our public website where we've actually defined it just to make it clearer for folks so they know what regulatory approvals they need in place, what approvals within the organisation. We've also worked on benefits realisation, and we call it people because obviously we're talking about health and care as well with social care. And what we've done is built a process where we're looking at the outcomes and experience. So benefits realisation can quite often be seen as financial, but this is about looking at the outcomes. And you've guessed it, the tool we use is of course clinical audit. So it's that really solid gold standard tool, and measuring the compliance against NICE guidance. So are we doing what we should be doing, and are we doing it in the right way so that we're actually improving patient outcomes? When we look at medtech funding, we need to be really mindful that medtechs can and often are disruptive, in the sense that we're looking at changing pathways. We're looking at actually stopping doing something that we've done before, because we can create better outcomes for patients. We can reduce the need to come into hospital. We can reduce waiting times, etc. One of the things that we've done and worked very hard at is negotiating £1.2 million worth of funding from NHS Dorset, which is agreed in principle. And we use the mechanism where obviously it goes through the central processing to get those funds through. But NHS Dorset have recognised the need and are working very closely with us on that. We need to also make sure that we're embedding medtechs in a sustainable way, and that's really important as we look moving forward. So built into the policies, built into the training, and making sure, as Vicky said, that we're doing that in a way that is safe for our patients and staff. Next slide, please. And just very quickly, I suppose to bring that into sharp focus, this is one of the original medtech funding mandates by a industry company called HeartFlow, and this is looking at fractional flow reserve for coronary CG angiography. And we've used the wording here from NICE specifically, so the patient benefit replaces the need for that invasive procedure. reduces the length of stay, reduced hospital visits and multiple diagnostic tests, faster diagnosis and reduced waiting times, and the need to go to that specialist cardiology procedure centre. So implementation, we as the Dorset Innovation Hub with Joe and the team and all our partners have taken that forward. So the Bournemouth and Poole sites, that's now University Hospitals Dorset, were early adopters. So that's the pre-mandate. So that's the level just before it comes up to full NICE guidance. And we're working currently with Dorset County. And rather than assessing, we've now moved to the stage where we're just before going live with full implementation. So it's a current moving forward. And then last slide, thank you so much. Just a little bit of further information, links to our public website, a recent blog about local implementation of medtech funding, and of course the work of the Wessex AHSN, of which we're working with. So thank you, whistle stop tour, and hope to be able to speak to you again in the future about the work that we're doing. Over to you, Stuart.
Thanks,
That's
Sarah.
all right.
I know we're running over a little bit. We've got one more slide just to put up on the screen. If you could go to that, please, Becca. So I mentioned at the start, between Vicky, Sarah, Joe, Adam and myself, we've been doing a little bit of thinking about how we can use this as a catalyst to, do more, I suppose, of what has just been described, that kind of partnership working approach between AHSNs and your network, to try and support innovation adoption at scale and spread. Our mechanism for trying to do that with you all would be to run a few workshops next year. This slide is very heavy on text. I'm not going to read through it verbatim because we don't have time, but it just gives you a sense of what we would like to explore with you all next year, starting with a workshop on our sort of change toolbox, whether it's quality improvement, clinical audit. We do a lot of evaluation sort of work in the network as well, to try and use that as one way of sort of building some of this partnership working and maybe enable us all to do a bit of learning along the way. The second workshop will think more about the human factors, what are the cultural and behavioural aspects of change that we need to be thinking about across AHSN network and NQICAN when we're trying to support the implementation of innovation. And then the final workshop would build on those two and get us probably thinking a bit more about how we can, what additional case studies are there emerging from NQICAN and AHSN teams that build on what's just been presented from Yorkshire and Dorset. And how can we do more of that and fuse this partnership more to enable systems to benefit from the adoption of innovation across our teams? So I will stop talking there and hand back probably to Vicky or Marina.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Sarah and Joe and Adam. That was very. I found it very informative, and I was part of it. So it's Marina. Have we got any questions at this point in time?
There were a couple that came through during your slides, Vicky. Are there terms of reference for the NICE implementation steering group that you're available for sharing, please?
Yeah, we do have a terms of reference. So yeah, I'll go back to my organisation, just check they're happy, and I could pop those. We probably ought to start a section on the forum really for this, shouldn't we? So that we can share. I can share them on there. I can't imagine they'll have a problem, but I always like to ask permission. So yeah.
Okay, and there was also a point. Is the NICE coordinator a dedicated position, individual job role, or is it an add-on to an existing role, such as a consultant with an interest in NICE guidance?
Oh, so no, it's actually a NICE coordinator role within our clinical effectiveness unit, funded 3 days a week at a band 7. So we're very fortunate. We're a large acute trust, though, so you can imagine most of the NICE guidance that's published is applicable to us. So yeah. It's a non-clinical role as well, but we do have our deputy medical director that oversees the NICE agenda on behalf of the medical director. So he's our medical leadership behind it.
And there was a linked just question for that, I suppose, open to the members on, in terms of they were interested to know what other trusts NICE administrator banding was. So if anybody would like to reply to that post, you can hit reply in the Q&A and respond to the person directly who's asked that. And then the other questions were, what is an AIMS system, please?
Sorry, yeah, it's another abbreviation. That's what we call our audit information management system, which is a database that's been built internally by our medical physics department. One arm of it's clinical audit, the other arm is our whole NICE implementation, and they actually link to each other as well, so we can link the audits to the NICE guidance within the same system. So it's our database.
And then someone else has asked, how do we get a list of the mandated medtech for 22-23?
Marina, I've popped that in the chat. It's on page 8 and 9. It's quite a comprehensive document, but it's worth going through and having a look, but also reverse engineering it. Look at the NICE guidance that's associated with the medtech, and you can see the evidence coming in, and you can see there's the impact templates, which helps you when you're working with your operational teams, with finance, etc. So it's really good to have a look at.
Thank you, Sarah.
Brilliant.
And then just in response to that again, Vicky, someone's asked if you could share the Band 7 job description, please.
Yes, I think we've circulated it within Yearn before, so there's no issues with that. Yeah, we'll do that as well for you. Lovely.
That's
right,
it for questions then.
Thank you so much, Marina, for managing the questions. Thank you so much to Joe and Sarah and Adam and Stuart for joining us as well. That was fantastic. I think Stuart's leaving us at this point, and Sarah and Joe, so thank you. Adam's going to stay for any questions at the end as well. So I think we're going to move on now to our NHS England update. So we'll hand over to Rebecca, if that's okay.
Thanks, Vicky. Hi, everyone. Good to be here. So I'm just going to give a bit of an NHS England update. We've got Dominique with us as well today. Next slide, please. I'm just going to give a bit of an update, a bit of a background reminder for you all. The slides haven't moved on for me. I don't know if they have for other people. There we go. So yeah, just a reminder that the commissioning of the National Clinical Audit Patient Outcome Programme is led by the Medical Directorate within NHS England. So Dominique is here on behalf of that team. That's delivered via HQIP. So in order to avoid the duplication between our presentations, HQIP are going to deliver the update which covers NCPOP, but we can chip in with any additional information or comments when we get to that point. So in addition to the NCPOP programme within NHS England, we also within the Transformation Directorate have a programme of work which is focusing on improvement for National Clinical Audit, which is where my role sits within this work. And Dr. Vin Duiker is the lead for National Clinical Audit within NHS England, and he chairs the Executive Quality Group Clinical Audit Subgroup, which our implementation group that oversees our improvement work feeds into. So there's a bit of detail there around the purpose of that group, which I know we've mentioned before. So in the interest of time, I will move on to the next slide. Just to give a bit of an update on where we are specifically with our work on National Clinical Audit for Improvement. So you might remember at the last meeting, I presented a similar update slide. The focus of our work, as I said, is around local implementation of national audit recommendations, and that real focus on improvement and quality improvement. And our key deliverable for this year has been around the development of a learning community and a knowledge hub, which in typical NHS England style has taken a little bit longer than we would like, but we're really pleased to report that that work is now very much underway. So we've had specialist input undertaking user needs analysis to help shape the development of this learning community. Interviews and surveys are underway. We've had really good response to that. I hope that people on this call will have already completed that survey, but if you haven't, then please do take the opportunity. We really would like to hear from everybody. And the purpose is to gain a better understanding of how people interact with national clinical audits, how they interpret the information, and how they apply national recommendations at a local level. We're still in the process of completing the surveys and interviews, but those are coming to an end in the next week or so. So get in there quick if you haven't already. We're expecting draft outputs by the end of this month, and then final outputs in the new year. So when we come back to the next meeting, we'll be in a position to give some sort of much more detail around what the findings of that work have been, and what we might want to do as a result of that. There's a lot of rich data in there that I hope that we'll be able to share with Vicky and NQICAN colleagues, at least in the background, if not publicly, that will help inform all of our work. So really, really rich content there. The next slide is a shameless plug for the survey, and just a reminder that what the results of the research will be used for. We will send out the link after the meeting for everybody, just so you've got that to hand, in case that link doesn't work on screen. If you're interested in a one-to-one conversation, then we'd love to hear from you as well, so please let us know about that. But this really has been the focus of our attention since the last meeting, so as I said, hopefully by the next meeting we'll have some of the outputs to share with you, but happy to take any questions or comments whilst I'm here. Thank you.
There haven't been any comments coming through the Q&A other than sharing the link to the survey.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca.
That's great.
Okay,
thank you.
so if we're no more questions at this point, then I think we'll move to the HQIP update then, and hand over to Caroline.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
We've just been fiddling around behind the scenes because Kim hopefully is trying very hard to join. Oh, she's not in yet, I can see. She was in the live event, I think, but now we're trying hard to get her into this meeting. So I will just start, but Kim, do say something if you're, when you appear, when you're out there. And my other colleague I'd like to introduce is Helen from HQIP. Hopefully people know me. I'm Caroline Rogers. I am one of the associate directors at HQIP. So I look after and manage the contracts for several of our programs in the NQICAN program, the National Clinical Audit Patient Outcomes program. But I'm also the liaison person for NQICAN. So I come to all the quarterly meetings and I meet with Vicky and Marina, and I'm somebody you can ask questions of or take information backwards and forwards. So I'm the key person, or one of the key people. Others who will hopefully join us soon. No, I don't think she has yet. And Helen, do you want to just introduce yourself, because it's such an important role for NQICAN members?
Yeah, hello everybody. Can you all hear me okay? I think I've just been unmuted. I'm quite new to HQIP, and I'm filling in for Lorna while she's on secondment. So I'm project manager for quality accounts and subscriptions. Do you want to say a little bit more, Caroline, or shall I go ahead with my update?
Do you want to start your update? And Rebecca, maybe if Kim can't join the meeting as a presenter, are you able to unmute her, please? Is that a function?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I think she might be, or no, I think it's just that I'm calling her. Sorry.
Okay. I'll do. I wondered whether
Helen, yes, please do go ahead and
okay.
sort things out.
Okay, so I'm just going to give a bit of an
Rebecca,
update.
could you move our slides on, please?
The next slide is probably grand. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit of an update on kind of 3 strands and areas of activity, and it's quite a high level update. So the the first area of activity is around the NHS England Quality Accounts List. And it's just really to give an update to let everybody know that preparation for the new 23-24 Quality Accounts List is well underway. We undertook a survey of providers in October, November this year, and the results have been reviewed by NHS England, and the document is in the process of being finalised for publication. We hope to make it available on the HQIP website around mid-January next year. And there will be communication around that, so via the HQIP e-bulletin as usual, and I'll also put a post on the NQICAN forum as well. In the meantime, I guess the Quality Accounts webpage within the HQIP website is there for general information on Quality Accounts List, and also the lists, the previous lists for the last 2 years are available there as well. Yep, happy to move on to the next slide, please. Yep, so just also to give a little bit of an update on where we are with the directory. The directory, for those who maybe aren't as familiar with it, is a publicly available Excel resource that essentially gives a sort of centralised high-level view of clinical audit, confidential inquiry and registry project information. And it's designed to support trusts in their annual participation planning, and also in terms of the quality account reporting process. Updated versions of the directory are posted to the HQIP web page routinely, and I usually, or Lorna did, and I will continue to signpost those via the NQICAN online forum. And the current version of the directory, I think, is the one dated October this year. We're also undergoing an annual review of the directory, and all provider organisations listed there have recently completed or have been invited to complete a survey to update their information, and that's the information relevant for the remainder of this year, and also to add information for the new year 23-24. I hope to make a revised version of the directory available following publication of the new Quality Accounts List. And it's probably worthwhile noting that we've made a couple of changes to the directory, both in terms of how we collect that information through the survey and the fields within the directory, and that those changes have been made as a result of feedback that we got from the last of these open sessions in September. Yep, happy to move on to the subscription slide now, please. Again, just a quick update. So the initial letters went requesting purchase orders for the NCAPOP subscription funding fee were sent as normal to trusts in April this year, and a progress report as at 18th of November shows that 96% of trusts have been invoiced or have provided their purchase orders to us or to the finance team at HQIP. I think that's me in terms of my update.
Right, can you hear me? Can you see?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I had quite a drama there. Okay, I'm really sorry about that. I was hearing most of the meeting, so I haven't missed loads of things. Just to say, I'm Kim Rosell, for those that don't know me. I'm the head of patient and carer engagement at HQIP, and I support Caroline in working with NQICAN and providing a link between HQIP and NQICAN. I also wanted to say that we have Claire Fountain with us today, who is joined as an attendee, but she is our new Associate Director for Quality Improvement. So she's just listening for the moment, but hopefully in a future meeting she'll be able to present. Okay, I'm going to provide a bit of an update on comms. So Caroline, actually, this is over to you. So if you want to do the procurement bit, and I'll come in a bit later.
I will, and I can see there's some questions coming in for us, so we can obviously pick those up at the end of everything. Right, well, just to let everyone know, so the information is in front of you. So procurement-wise, we are recommissioning the Falls and Fragility Fracture Audit Programme. The same thing applies to the National Respiratory Audit Programme, that the tender deadline has finished, and we are evaluating the bids that we've had in, and we will be going live quite shortly with the National Child Mortality Database and the National Eating Disorders Audit. So all those procurements are open procurements that potential for, and the contract has been awarded for the stroke programme, and details of that will be made fairly soon. Thank you. If we could go to the next slide. So I suppose I would say, by introduction to all of that, that all, possibly with some very few exceptions, but all of our programmes are commissioned for 3 years in the first instance, plus a potential 2-year extension, and then we follow all procurement rules about recommissioning.
Is Caroline frozen for everybody else? Yeah, I don't know if Kim.
Yeah, she has frozen. I'm not sure what she was about to say. This is talking about commissioning. When she comes back, she can fill you in. So just to say, here there is a link to our recently published reports. We update this link every 3 months. Are you there, Caroline?
To that 5-year contract.
I'll carry on. So we will be, all of these slides will be in the form of a PDF, which will be shared with everyone, so you can access these.
Period each, and there were some questions last.
I'll carry on. Yeah, she's sort of coming in and out, isn't she?
Yeah.
Link to National Joint Registry report as well there. Okay, do you want to move to the next slide, please, Becca? I think what we'll do is skip over the cancer, because Caroline is the Associate Director running these cancer audits, so I think it's better if she updates on that. So if you want to move ahead to the comms slide, please, Becca. Next one. Thank you. All right, so I'll just carry on with this information. So we have these new themed newsletters, which we've been doing this year. We've had 3 so far. In these topics: children and young people's health, maternity and newborn, and mental health. This update brings together key information from both HQIP and the sector, and so it's a useful summary for anyone working in the selected field. The most recent edition can be found on this link, and the first 2 editions are still available to read online, and in early 2023 we will be looking at the theme of cancer. Okay, next slide, please. Hopefully many of you have seen our new free online publication. It's designed to support quality improvement in healthcare. So Cornerstone is a magazine-like publication that features short articles on key issue. And this edition featured topics including the power of health data and national data opt-out, the impact of national clinical audit, engaging patients and health inequalities, and a number of others. So there's also a range of support and other information such as QI resources, reports, infographics and case studies. So we really hope that it's something that you are picking up, can dip in and out of, but also share with colleagues. It's available online. The link will be provided in the update, the PDF update that you'll all get. But we really want you to feed back. So please make sure you complete the Survey Monkey and tell us what you think. Next slide, please, Becca. Okay, HQIP's latest annual report. This is available to download from our website. It covers April 2021 to March 2022. It documents our key achievements for the year and plans for the future alongside the trustees and financial reports as usual. So just a few highlights here. It's our year in numbers. So 70 reports published with 396 recommendations and 29 infographics, all available online. An increase in the use of NCAP, our National Clinical Audit Benchmarking website, with nearly 5,000 users. and over 1,400 online e-learning courses completed. And we've got a number of e-learning courses that are available. So you can read the full annual report online. And then next slide, please. Clinical Audit Awareness Week. So as you're all aware, I hope, that we had our Clinical Audit Awareness Week on the 13th to the 17th of June 2022. The campaign it promotes and celebrates the benefits and impacts of clinical audit and QI work in healthcare. So we really welcome feedback about the week and also about the Clinical Audit Hero Awards. So we've put a short online survey. The link is here, it's available on our website, but the closing date is the 16th of December, so you haven't got long to complete it. It should only take about 5 minutes, but it will really help us to think about our future activities. We've also invited the Clinical Audit Heroes and the commended entries to share case studies of their work. So the first case study is available on the website. This is from the Newcastle Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust. They were named the Future Proofing Healthcare Hero. The Sustainable Respiratory Care Audit Team were recognised for their work to improve care for individual patients while also reducing the environmental impacts of healthcare. So the case study details how their project provided a structure for the audit on patients' techniques, preferences and knowledge about inhalers and the need for a clinical review. So this is all available on our website. You can see the case study and the link there. So this is the last one from me. I take it we haven't got Caroline back. No.
I'm here.
Oh, you are? All right, let me just do this PPI slide and then over to you, Caroline. So I just wanted to say that we updated in the last meeting that we had opened for entries for our Richard Driscoll Memorial Award, and that award celebrates all the engagement activity and in our HQIP commissioned programmes. And this year Epilepsy 12 won, and they have won it before actually in 2018, but they won for their outstanding collaboration with their youth advocates to design and deliver their audit outputs. It's a great case study. Please go and have a look at it on our website. We also awarded the National Child Mortality Database and the National Audit of Breast Cancer for Older Patients. We awarded them a highly commended award this year as well. All case studies on our website. And just a quick update, our service user network, we've opened up the way we invite people to join as members. So I really encourage, there's going to be further information in the e-bulletin coming out before Christmas. And I really encourage NQICAN members to forward the link, encourage their patient and public community to sign up so they can hear about health, any involvement opportunities to support QI. Okay, so Caroline, you're there?
I am here, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Hi, but I don't know when to cut off.
Okay, so when I think if we could go back to the cancer programme slide, please, Becca, and Caroline, perhaps you could pick up on the cancer audits information.
You might have gone again.
I don't know the way we work. This is so frustrating. Is it working?
We can hear you now, but you might go in and out again, Caroline. Do you want to have a go? And then if you go out,
see if that helps. Yeah, you let me know if I go out. Well, okay. Very quick. I mean, you'll see our written update, but the new, it's called the National Cancer Audit Collaborating Centre, and it started work on the first a new set of cancer audit programmes that have been commissioned, and the Royal College of Surgeons are hosting the centre. If we could go on to the next slide, please. You've got the list of no, we haven't. It must be the previous slide.
Yep. Yeah, the list's there for you, Caroline.
There we go. So the list of audits evolving from the previous audit of breast cancer, ovarian, pancreatic, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and kidney cancer. And that we started as the existing cancer audits.
I think we might be.
I should got cut off. We commission
think we keep
Say stop
losing
if
you,
it's not working.
Caroline. Yeah, we keep losing you.
Okay. Oh dear, next time. Okay.
Should we move on to model health, conscious of time as well, and actually perhaps we can see if we can get a reception from you once we've had the model health system, and obviously if people have got any questions about the cancer programme, they can put them forward. Does that sound okay? Sorry, Caroline, because we obviously want to hear about it as well. Right, I'm going to hand over to Racham and Richard and Madeline now to give us a walkthrough of the model health system.
Thank you so much, Victoria and Rebecca. I hope you've had a good meeting so far. So I think Rebecca's going to be showing the slides. Thank you, Rebecca. So my name is Racham Note. I'm the Head of Advocacy and User Support. We have a couple of speakers here today. I'll let Maddie and Rich introduce themselves in a minute. We are going to cover, hopefully in the next 20 or so minutes, an overview of the product, a bit about clinical information, and then some audit data. So Maddie, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yep, hi, I'm Maddie Connolly and I'm Deputy Director of Clinical and Financial Information. So one of the main areas that I look after in terms of analytics is the analytics for the Getting It Right First Time programme, but I'm also involved in the NCIP programme and some of the other sort of clinical information areas.
Excellent. And Rich?
Hi, I'm Rich Butterfield. I'm Head of Analytical Operations here at NHS England. So one of my roles is, or a lot of my role is to get the core content into the model health system.
Excellent. So I think we're taking questions at the end. Is that right, Victoria? So excellent. Thank you very much. And next slide, I think, Rich, you're kicking us off. So thanks, Rich.
I am. So what is the model health system? So essentially it's a free data-driven improvement tool, and the intention is to support healthcare systems in improving patient outcomes, and in doing so aim to improve overall population health. The way it does this is it presents benchmarking data around quality of care, productivity, people metrics like organisational culture across NHS providers and systems as well. It can be used by anyone within the NHS. If you have a NHS email address, you can get into the model health system. We'll come on to the login page in a minute. So we have benchmarking data across a range of specialties available again at a system and a provider level. And we have a good covering of clinical information. So from metrics from GIRF to Getting It Right First Time and Right Care. And these are all updated on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So yeah, I'll take you through an overview of how to navigate around the model health system and how to use the data and charts. Okay, next slide. This is the login screen. So it can be found at model.nhs.uk. Fairly easy to remember, but we'll bring that up again at the end. And you would go here to register, fill out for the organisation that you work for, and you'll receive email confirmation as to how to get in. As a standard, you'll be given access to the organisation you work for, the system that organisation is in, and any other provider within that system. I recognise that a number of people on the call may not have an NHS email address, so we'll have to, a request through to the help desk would be needed to get the access sorted, so we have to go for special access for that. Okay, next slide, please. This is our homepage view, and this is at the system level. So because we have, well, close to 45,000 metrics within the model health system, we've brought things together or developed a new homepage at the system level. So you get three different perspectives: the quadruple aim of healthcare, productivity and clinical improvement. And then within those, you've got 4 subject areas. And if you choose one of those areas, you'll be shown opportunities for improvement, highlighted metrics, and relevant kind of links to external content as well. But that's just our way to, I suppose, filter through the data or navigate through the data. Next slide, please. So once you've selected a particular area from the menu, you'll come to these subject areas. So this one is orthopaedic surgery. Metrics on this page have been selected by the content team as best representative to give you an overview. As well as the overview, you can also download from this compartment. So in the top right, you get a download button and it gives a nice PDF style report, or you can choose to export into Excel if you wanted to do some further analysis. Then down the left hand side you've got drill downs to further areas. Okay, next slide. Picking one of those drill downs, you'll be brought through to this tabular page. So here you have all the metrics under that particular theme, and then you get the date period that you're looking at, a value for the provider or the system that you are interested in, and then a benchmark, which might be a peer median or as well as the national median. Next to that, you get a little thumbnail chart, which tells you where your provider is or system is against the national median. And then finally, on the far side, you've got a little I button that helps you kind of decipher the thumbnail chart, and a bookmark button. If you see something you're interested in, you can just bookmark it and it appears at the top, so you can use that on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Okay, clicking on a particular metric will take you down to this metric page. So with each of those, you get a brief description of what is being measured at the top. Again, you get the value for the system or the organization you're looking at, a peer median and the national median as well. You get the visual representation in the chart, which you can click on. It is an interactive chart when you go through to click on it, and then further down you get some detail that helps you understand the data, as well as the data source and the methodologies used, which can be quite helpful if you're comparing to local data. Okay, next slide, please. So I showed you one route in. This is the other route. This is our browse menu. So if you know what you are looking for, it's a great place to go to. You can pick your particular topic area, and that will take you into a very similar view to what I've shown you previously. And then you'll see these little red triangles throughout the system, and those infer that there is a particular metric that's been highlighted because it's not achieving a benchmark or in the lowest quartile, and you can see those against each of those different compartments there. Okay, on to the next slide. So when you click on a chart, you come through to the interactive chart. So you can see the organization or system that you're interested in is shown as black. The peers are shown in grey. And what you will find is that you can alter the peers, but there will be a selected a group of peers available for you. And how that works is we've put your organization against a number of other organizations for 20 or 30 metrics, and we've looked for similarities. We've used a clever bit of machine learning to put providers and systems together, and that spits out that list, and we obviously use that throughout the course of the system. Okay, so carrying on with the chart, you've got obviously the red and green for the other organizations, the peers shown in grey, and the lines across will be either the benchmark or there'll be the peer median and the national median. You can choose at this point to extract these charts, and you'll get a nice picture which you could use in a report, or you can click to change it to a table and then extract that into Excel. There is the option in the top right to change these reports to trends over time, as well as statistical process charts as well. So you can look to see if something is statistically significant or if it's just natural variation in trends over time. And then I think the next one's the final slide from me before we go through to Maddie. Yeah, that just shows you the drill down to provider level. So the previous level we were looking at was system level, and the peers have gone this time. What you have is all of the black bars are the providers within the system that you had chosen. If you've gone in at a provider level, that will show the peers again in grey, and it will show the particular provider you've chosen as the black bar. What you might find through the system is charts that appear in blue, and that's just because we've not been able to attribute a higher, lower value or good, bad performance. So things like number of staff, number of theatres, you'll see appearing in blue throughout the system. Okay, if we move on to the next slide, I think this is where Maddie takes over.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to talk really quickly through a tiny bit of background on GIRFT and some of the clinical information that we publish through Model Health System, a really quick overview of some of the other areas of clinical information that are useful and might be useful to you as well that are in Model Health System, and then I was going to run through what we've already got in there for the audits and some sort of ideas about how we're planning to expand. So for people that don't know who GIRFT is, I'm sure there's some of you that still exist. So we are a national programme, and we are so we're an improvement programme, and our key features, the main ones that sort of jump out for me, are that we're clinically led, data driven, and our aims are to improve outcomes, so to reduce unwarranted variation. So we have worked with quite a bit of the audit information in some of our earlier projects where we were developing PLRs, so you might have come across GIRFT as a project. So next slide, please. So slightly complex slide. What this is really trying to show is the way we used to work traditionally is we would produce bespoke data packs for each specialty, for each provider, and they included a really long list of metrics that we would draw from a range of different sources, and that's the grey circle on the outside. The circles that have got red around them are all the areas that we're now trying to push through to Model Health System. So what we're doing is working with our clinical leads to agree a reduced list of metrics from their long list that they want to monitor on an ongoing basis. And that's what Model Health System gives us, a really good platform for being able to do that. So we then create the metrics on a regular basis. We keep the data on Model Health System up to date. It already includes all of the sort of peer functionalities and the benchmarking that Rich was just explaining, and the graphs and the charts that go with it. But for that reduced list of metrics, the beauty, I think, from my side, so I've been in GIRFT for quite a long time, from before we worked on Model Health System. What I really appreciate about the Model Health System side is having our metrics shown against other metrics. So you've got the GIRFT, which is very much traditionally a provider-based programme that's now sitting and working alongside right care metrics. So you can look at population metrics alongside the GIRFT metrics. You can see waiting list data coming in there, and where we can, we've got some of the audit information coming through. So at the moment, we've got GIRFT metrics available for providers, and we group our providers up to systems to give system information. We're currently working on developing regional data. So again, some of that information up to regional level, and also a drill down into sites. So for those sort of organisations that are multi-site, it gives a better drill down into that data. Next slide, please. So this slide is really just summarising the specialties that we've currently got on Model Health System. So the box on the left-hand side lists all of the ones that we've got at the moment, and we've got 14 different specialties. We've covered all of the high volume, low complexity areas, so the main sort of surgical areas that are involved in elective recovery, and we've got some others around sort of things like paediatrics. And we're developing at the moment, we've got 3 specialties that we're working on that are all connected to the urgent care side. So we're trying to get those up as soon as possible for the winter. We then have a longer list. Across GIRFT, there's 42 different clinical specialties. So we want to get as much as we can into Model Health System. Where you find them, going back to Richard's view of the overview browse menu, if you go into the acute hospital services, and then if you pick one of the specialties that we've got metrics in, ours come into the top section, so highlighted on the right for the clinical metrics. And what you can see there is 3 different compartments that we've put in for some of the specialties. So we tend to have a summary gateway metric compartment, and that's a shorter list of the key metrics that the clinical lead has said these are the most important metrics for the specialty. What we tend to do with those ones as well is agree what a GIRFT standard with the clinical lead. So we've got things in there like length of stay for hip fractures, for hip replacements, with a standard target length of stay of 2.7 days rather than just working against the national average. The all clinical metrics is our longer list of metrics for the specialty, and then for some specialties where the high volume, low complexity ones, we've got particular metrics that measure pathways that GIRFT have designed. for patients flowing through the system. So next slide, please. I think that's backwards. Thanks. Yeah, so this is just to give some other examples of data sources on model health systems that are particularly useful. So the ones that we would use, that we sort of frequently use, and sometimes we mirror them into our own compartments, is in the day case, in the care settings, there's a whole day case section, and that includes all of the BADS, so the British Association of Day Surgeon metrics. Really, really useful for us, and we use those quite a lot. The other one that we use in that section that we feed into actually is the theatres compartment. So again, that's a really big area that's supporting the elective recovery. But as you can see from here, there's information from community services, so you can look across things like diabetes, continence, community nursing. There's lots of metrics on the people side of things, so you can look at the resourcing end, mental health compartments, and then some of the policy priorities that will include things like the RTT, waiting list data, and some population health data. And at the bottom, there's also a search function. So if you ever sit there thinking, is there anything on diabetes, you can type something into the search and it will bring you back a list of metrics for you to investigate. So next slide, please. And again, next slide. So this question came up in the chat as well. We have got some of the audit data coming into model health systems. So if you go to the acute hospital services on the browse menu, and if you follow the clinical audit compartment, it then opens up the area where we've been putting those, the ones that we've brought in. We've also mirrored them into the particular specialties. So if you went into ophthalmology as an acute hospital compartment, you would also find the National Ophthalmology Database will be mirrored in that compartment as well. So it would be in two different places, the relevant specialty and also in its own clinical audit compartment. So at the moment, we've got data flowing through for 5 of the different audits, and all of those are listed up there. If you could just go to the next slide, please. What I've done is just opened up one of those. So this is an example for the emergency laparotomy scorecard. So again, this is the view that Rich was showing you earlier, but this is specific to the laparotomy audit. So what you've got listed down the left-hand side is the metrics, and it will also have in brackets what the time period is. So these are all 12-month metrics. When you see the little arrow, which I haven't actually expanded out on this, but there's a little arrow to the left, very left-hand side of the name of the metric. If you open up, if you click on that, if it's got an arrow beside it, what it means is there's some indented metrics that you can also open up, and it will give you additional information. So in GIRFT, we use that to include numerators and denominators when we put our metrics up, but they can include different things. They might give you a more detailed split of the metric that's above. The second column along is telling you the data period, so it tells you when it was last updated, and we normally set the system up so it will show the most recent information that we've got available for a particular metric. So you can see on this we've got data to November 2020 for some of the metrics. Some of the ones at the bottom wouldn't have been available in the 2020 audit, so it's taken it back to a period of 2019 or 2018. So they're two really useful columns to look at just to make sure you understand the data period that you're looking for. The provider value comes up in the next column, and as you can see from this, all of the metrics here will have been RAG rated. So we've been working with people from the HQIP team to agree how we should present the data, what format it should go into, what the RAG rating is, and whether they're using a standard comparison against national median or whether they're using benchmark values. And I think most of these are actually against benchmark values that have been provided to us for the audits. So the colouring will just tell you where somebody sits within that sort of scoring scale. So on the top one, just taking one as an example, if you looked at that case ascertainment, what this is telling you is the provider value had a score of 20.1, the benchmark value is 85%, and this provider has been scored red. And if you look at the chart across to the right-hand side, that sort of mini chart that you see, you can see that this particular provider is down at the bottom end of the national scale for those. Next slide, please. So again, I'm just really sort of expanding on what Richard said, but making it relevant to the particular metrics that you've got. Once you open up into the metric, it will show you the headline variation chart showing all the providers across the organisation. You've got the button to click onto, which will take you to the interactive chart. So it will actually open up your chart and give you the ability to switch your views. There's a little box on the left-hand side which will give some information on understanding the data. So for this one, it's telling you that you've got to, it tells you why case ascertainment is important, and if it's low, what you could do about it. And then on the right-hand side, there's a methodology section which will tell you the numerators and the denominator for the particular metric. So just giving you some more background information. So next slide, please. Again, expanding on what Richard said, this is what happens when you open up the chart. You've got the same sort of RAG ratings. You can see the providers in here that are above the benchmark of the 85%, all scored in green. You've got some in an area just a little bit further below that are yellow, and you've got ones that are below the lower benchmark of 55% that are all scored and RAG rated red. And you can see that this provider is sitting in the middle of the yellow section. That's not very technical, in between the lower benchmark and the upper benchmark. So you can see where you're sitting as a provider, and again you can see where you're sitting against your peers. So next slide, please. So the chart to the left is just slightly complicated, showing how we're pulling the data in and how we've got the data coming through. We have been having conversations with others in HQIC around how we can extend what comes into this, and I think it's part of a bigger programme of work about understanding how the audit data can be shared more widely. A couple of the obstacles that we need to overcome is that we really need to receive data at various grains of information so that we can aggregate it within Model Health System. So, for example, where we got stuck with a couple of the audits is the data is coming through at site level. We haven't got functionality to view information in Model Health System at site level without going through a provider. So we really need the audits to present us with the information in a pre-formatted way that gives us data at site level, provider level, system level and region level, so we can feed everything in, or we need the base data so we can aggregate it at that level. So we've got various pieces of work and conversations ongoing between Model Health System and the providers of that data to try and bring everything together in a more consistent format. And then we need to agree on prioritisations and allocations of people to support any additional work. There's also conversations around how quickly we can get data updated and how we can keep it flowing so it's more up to date for everybody. The other thing that was just a note to say that we're also developing a new statistical model within Model Health System that will reflect the way that you often present things in HQIP. So using the confidence intervals. So we've got a new model that's coming that means we can actually use your own way of scoring, because I think that's the other thing that's quite important, is if we RAG rate things slightly differently from anything that's being pushed out by the audits themselves, it can give a conflicting and confusing message. So I think that's the end. Next slide, please. I think that is the end of my presentation. So yeah, that was really just to give you an overview of what we've got in Model Health System, some of the other areas that are in there that I think are probably useful to people already. So even if the audit information isn't in there, I think there is quite a lot of other clinical information and information from other areas that can still be useful. So we would still be encouraging everybody to log on, if you're based in providers, to get in, have a look, see what's there, and to try and use that information in conjunction with what's coming through from the audit side. So thank you. That's back to whoever's running the show.
Thanks, Madeline. That's brilliant. I was just checking you'd finished then. That was really, really useful. Thank you. And yeah, I do think, as we see more audits coming in, then we really need to understand how to use the system to do that whole triangulation, don't we? That's fantastic. Marina, have we got, because I'm conscious that I moved on so quickly without taking questions for HQIP as well, but should we take questions for Rachel, Madeline and Richard first? And then if we go back to the HQIP questions, and then we'll pick up any extras after that, time allowing. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So in terms of questions regarding Model Health System, then, so we had one: does the Model Health System incorporate Insight and QSIS data as well as GIRFT? If not, are there any plans for this integration? First question.
So within the specialist service compartment, we've got, I think, about 6 areas. So we've got cancer, I think we've got internal medicine, we've got mental health, women's and children's, where we've got some of the QSIS information flowing into those areas. So that would be that'd be the first port of call, I would suggest. But yeah, I think there's 7 there. It's not showing for me. I'm trying to refresh it as we speak, but I think there is 7 from memory. which we're working with the QSIS team potentially to develop more, but at the moment it's more metrics within those particular areas that we're developing.
Just to add, Rich, to that, we have a number of webinars on QSIS on the product. So once you log in, you'll be able to access our webinar program and access the QSIS ones in particular.
And then there was another question, is there going to be a function where you can see a yearly/quarterly comparison, handy to see if improvements have been made easy? And I can see you've responded to this in the chat already, to say you can change the date period at the top of the page to choose the date period. So if the data is available quarterly, then this will be available here. You can also switch to trends over time for a particular metric to see previous data. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Richard?
No. So if you've chosen a particular metric, I say no and then I start speaking. If you choose a particular metric, you can change the date period at the top. So yeah, if it is a data set that is available historically, then you will be able to get into that and you'll be able to look at previous submissions of that particular data set. The trends over time, when you look at the chart, will just be for the metric you've chosen, but essentially the data for that organisation against a national benchmark or a selected benchmark.
I just jump in on that as well. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, the chart's really useful. And when I was doing the presentation, I focused on the problem is the HQIP ones, because they're only quite recent. We haven't got a trend, so I didn't show you the trend chart. But the trend charts are really good. We use those all the time, and they are a really good way of looking at things. We use it for tracking day case rates or theatre utilisation to show how it's moving over time and how a provider's moving compared to national averages. So yeah.
Thank you. And then other questions coming in. Will this eventually replace the HQIP benchmarking platform, as they both seem to do a similar job, with MH more detailed? And Caroline from HQIP has responded with a link to a document there where you can find the response to that query. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Caroline? Or Richard?
Hopefully I'm back now, am I? Yeah, I think we tried to answer that before, that we're no plans at the moment, but that's something that's being considered, and they've been developed in parallel at the moment.
I'll just come on quickly on that. I think that model health system at the moment is a kind of closed system, so it's open to anybody within the NHS, and I think that is different, unless I'm wrong, Caroline, but I think that's different from the HQIP one, which is open to the public.
You're correct.
So
yeah.
that's a definite difference between the two systems, that there is still a need for HQIP to share their information more widely than just within the NHS.
Yeah, it's a more sort of high level, easier access, more accessible set of information. Yeah.
Okay, and then two further points just come in. What would be good is if, for example, we have 100% compliance with RESP bundle, that data could be aligned to the readmissions to demonstrate the outcomes. So that's a comment rather than a query. And then the data on MHS looks quite acute hospital focused. Are there plans for more mental health audit data to be put on, such as the POMH?
So there is a mental health compartment. I'm not sure about that particular metric. We might have to take that away as a query, but we have an area for mental health. We have an area for community as well, and there's a number of topics within them, at probably about 9 or 10 within each of those areas. So it's started off acute focused, but it's evolved over time to bring in other providers.
And that's all the questions currently.
Oh, lovely. So no more questions coming through. I'm just wondering, Caroline, is it worth trying your cancer slide again? Because I do think people want to know about the cancer programme.
Well, definitely. No, I can definitely try.
I'm putting pressure on Becca now to get the slide back up, unless you
I've restarted everything, so I'm hoping that things will be a bit better. I don't know what the problem was, and I apologise to everyone. It looked all fine from my end, so I didn't know there was a problem.
Oh, I can see Becca's trying to get the slide up.
So essentially, I suppose I can start. I don't know where I got to, but I was trying to explain that in general, we commission projects for 3 years in the first instance, with the potential for a 2-year extension, and some programs are recommissioned and some come in and out of the NQICAN, or some projects are recommissioned, some come in and out of the NQICAN program. depending on need and funding at the time. So the big news is that this collaborating centre has been set up to really try and pool resources and have a real centre of excellence in cancer audits, and it's being hosted by the Royal College of Surgeons. The contract was awarded to them and it started work on the 1st of October. They will just nod, Vicky, if this is all, if you can still hear me and it's working. Yeah,
we
great.
can,
okay,
yeah.
Lovely at last. And there are 5 new cancer audits listed there. Breast, which carries on from the original audit, which focused on older people, but it's much broader now. Ovarian, pancreatic, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, kidney cancer, as well as the existing cancer audits that we have in lung, prostate cancer, and the 2 gastrointestinal cancers. So this will be a real centre of excellence. And as for the question when these audits will start, they're all planned to start over the next 12 to 18 months. Quite soon, really, in a staged programme. The centre is just setting up and recruiting and setting up all their governance, and will release a proper timetable in the new year, so we can have a proper plan so that people know what's coming over the next few months. What else can I say about that? I think that's probably everything. Could I just flip to the next slide to see if I captured it all, please? Yeah, I think that's probably self-explanatory. That's probably all I need to say, unless anyone has any questions, which I'm very happy to answer.
We've got some questions from the that came through on the presentations previously. If you're happy for me to go to those.
Yes, please.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So the first one was, who did the consultation go to for quality accounts? As the CE manager, I never saw that document or was part of the conversation. And I'm aware Helen's that responded to that to say that providers were invited to submit national projects to be considered for inclusion in the quality accounts list 23-24. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, can I add to that? I wonder if there's a little bit of confusion about what we mean by providers. So that's probably our fault. So when we mean providers, we mean the audit programs themselves. So wherever they're based, the national audit project team. So we mean that we consulted with our project providers, so the Royal College of whatever or the University of whatever, who are offering the projects. So it wasn't, I mean, Helen, please butt in if I've got this wrong, but we weren't talking about a consultation with the health service much more widely. Yeah.
No, that's spot on. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. The next one was, what is the criteria for inclusion in the quality accounts each year? And Kim's responded to this, linking with a link to a document. If there's anything else that you want to add to that one.
No, just to say that the inclusion criteria is on our quality accounts webpage, and does include, yeah, a reporting period criteria as well. So yeah, that's there.
And I suppose the question might be asked, given that we've just said that there was no survey, you might ask the question, how do people feedback? And I think there is an address on that page, isn't there?
Yeah, I think my contact name is there. So yeah, and my email. Absolutely. So any sort of feedback or queries should come to me, I guess.
Okay, and then a couple of points through about Cornerstone. Cornerstone's a great read, thanks. Can it be produced quarterly instead of annually? And Kim's obviously responded to say that she'll pass that on to the comms team. It's unlikely, but the theme newsletters are more frequent. And another comment to say the themed newsletters are great and the specialties really like them. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Well, only that HQIC comms team probably makes it sound rather bigger than it actually is, and therefore the person who will be writing it will be delighted to hear you enjoy it, and I'm sure as capacity will allow, will do as much as she possibly can. But again, we're funded, you know, to do the most that we can within the resources that we've got. So.
Okay, and then we've just got a couple of further ones. Where can we find further information on the National Eating Disorders Audit? And Kim's responded it hasn't yet been commissioned. Any other comments on it for that one? Probably not, no. Is there a possibility to publish benchmarking NCAB at the same time as the report gets published, as data on the benchmarking is also on old data?
We know, we're really aware of this. That's all I can say. We're trying our best. When we need to do work on it, our providers need to do work on it, and the CQC provide those sheets that go on the benchmarking. We're working with them, and I know there's a bit of a backlog after COVID and everything else. So we're very aware and keep feeding back, and we will keep working on it, is all I can say.
Thank you. And then the last one, when will the new cancer audit start? And Caroline, I know you've responded, staged over the next 18 months. The new centre is developing its plans at the moment and getting set up. Timetables will be announced in the new year. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that one?
No, but by the time we have the next NQICAN meeting, there'll be much firmer plans, and I'm very happy to present a bit more detail on that. And we could perhaps, perhaps I'll speak to Vicky outside the meeting, but perhaps we could invite the operations director of the centre at some point to come and give a good summary of what they're doing. That might be of interest.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. We'll add that to our list for our agenda. So yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Marina. Have we got any more?
That's all the questions for HQIP. Just a couple of small points for ourselves. Would it be worth having a list of the regional chairs in the chat when we have these open sessions? And I've added that to the response in terms of today's chat, but obviously we'll take that for future ones. And then will there be a recording and slides available, which I'm sure you'll pick up now?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll make sure that people get the link to the recording and obviously the link to where the slide pack is as well. So yeah, we'll do that every time we hold the open meeting, so that will become the norm. And we'll obviously publish the list of questions and responses as well for you all, so that you can all fully see everything in written format. So we've got literally a minute to go, so I suppose it's just time to thank everybody for attending, but also to thank all of our speakers as well. It's really, really valuable and rich information, and I'm hoping that everybody that's attended finds it to be of good value as well. Next meeting will be March the 14th, I think, isn't it, Becca, into 2023. So I suppose it's a chance to wish you all a happy Christmas, happy New Year as well, because the next time we meet we will be in 2023, won't we? And look after yourselves and try to make sure that you do get some downtime over the festive period as well. And thank you for joining us.